All right, everybody, it's been a crazy weekend. I haven't got time for a very long video, but I just had to show you guys this. So I was cruising around on Facebook Marketplace, which is a terrible habit of mine, and tripped across a picture of a couple of these. And I thought, what's this? So anyways, got in touch with it. Turned out, long story short, that some retired guy about an hour north of me had bought a single-wide trailer that had been inhabited by some reclusive hermit type. I guess it was a retired professor is what the story was. And anyways, they were trying to empty the place out, clean it out, and long and short was he had his granddaughter list that he had some books for sale. I got in touch. They had like half a dozen of these, and I'm like, well, what do you want for them? And they're like, well, we're negotiable. Come talk to us. And I'm like, well, how many do you got? Because I might be interested in buying them all. And she says, like, probably 200 books. And I laughed. But, as you can see, there ain't quite 200 books. Well, they probably did have 200 books. I just didn't buy all of them. So anyway, I went up there, drove an hour and a quarter up today, and what we have got is, this is books that I'm not familiar with. Maybe you guys, I had never heard of the periodical just called Machinery before. But what we've got here, I think the oldest one, what these are is magazines that were apparently part of the Dayton Public Library that were either bound after the fact into books, or in a lot of instances, they appear to have been bound this way for library use, specifically by the original manufacturer, because they actually have cover leaves that describe what's in them and stuff. And I've seen, magazines bound in a book before, but then it's literally every individual magazine. And these mostly appear to be just the articles and the advertisements in many instances, but, not with the covers and they've got an actual, and they'll have page numbers that go all the way up into the 1600s, right? Like they were clearly bound together this way right from the print shop. But anyways, so what there is here, I've got them segregated basically by century here is what I've done. So this is machinery from the 30s. This is machinery from the 40s with the exception of that 1919, 1920 edition. This is the 50s and 60s. Those are all machinery. So we've got everything, not everything, but basically the 30s all the way up into the 60s covered in machinery. Oh, whoops, I got one in the wrong stack. So there's an American Machinist. So there's a bunch of that. That publication I am familiar with. So what we've got here in American Machinist is, this is single digits, like 1904 to 1907. This is with the exception of this one, is, like 1915, 1914. There's one 1928. And then, let's see here, I got to get my head screwed on straight here. I'm trying to remember, was there 1930s or did it go? Yeah, this is 1930s. This is 1940s American Machinist, 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s. So we're basically, with gaps, I don't know how many gaps, we are spanning all the way from the teens, well, single digits to the 70s with American Machinist. And then there's a few other books that I had never heard of, like this Mechanical Engineering periodical, which we cover 1921 to 1923. Machine Design, that's another publication I'm not familiar with. We've got just a handful of those. One of those, this is an interesting one, 1928, 1929 Oil Bulletin, which is a publication all about the oil fields and equipment and stuff from that era. So anyways, as you guys can see, like this is in a just crazy collection. What I ended up doing, I'll show you a few more. There's a few publications in here that are just one-offs. This one just intrigued me, precision measurement, calibration, optics, metrology, and radiation. But then, this is a newer one. Engineering, this is really intriguing, because obviously my name's Andrew, and I'd never heard of this. It looks like something the equivalent of a McMaster car. It's big, just tool catalog and material catalog from probably the 40s. I haven't found a date in it yet, but Andrews Hardware and Metal Company out of Los Angeles, California. Machining Theory and Practice, The Grinding Wheel, and then here we've got a handful of some really wild old books. So this is Internal Combustion Engineering, 1913, and I believe, let's see here, I think this is all of 1913, Internal Combustion Engineering, and these are some sweet old books. I am just stoked to dig through these, and I'm sure you'll see more of them. And then this may be the crown jewel of the entire collection here. Locomotive Cyclopedia, 1925. I have to admit, I am pretty excited. I'm a bit of a steam nut, and this thing is from the heyday of steam, 1925. So we're very excited. I ended up, really couldn't figure out what a fair number was. I don't know what these things are worth, so we ended up settling on 300 bucks. I originally said 200, and then he said, well, I've got a bunch more, showed me a bunch more. I said 250, or I think originally I said 2, he said 250, and then he said, oh, I've got a bunch more, and there was like 20 more books, and then we settled on $300. So anyways, I'm sharing this with all of you guys, mostly because I'm excited to dig through them, but any of you that are familiar with these, if there's specific stuff that you know of that's in them that you'd like, hey, I'd like scan me off a copy of that article or whatever, I'm willing to try and hook people up with information. I'm mostly trying to make sure these don't go in a landfill somewhere. And I don't know what would have happened to them. Like, they had them advertised. Maybe somebody else would have spotted them. But they had a lot of other books on gunsmithing and engraving and all kinds of stuff. But I don't have enough. I don't even have enough library space for all of this, much less all the other ones. So I had to stay more specialized. But at any rate, I will definitely show you guys, I'm sure, highlights as I find the cool stuff that I'm sure will be discovered digging through here. But I just had to show you this is the kind of crazy stuff. And excuse the mess, but we had to pile them up in the garage because I had nowhere safe to put them at the shop right now. And they'll eventually go in the library here probably. So you guys all enjoy the rest of your weekend. Catch you later.